hopefully to dispel a lot of false rumors, to give you some information as to how we got here and what we intend to do. So, without saying any more, I want to introduce Rabbi Sam Levine. He will speak to you first, and we will proceed from there.
The purpose of this meeting is to hear those concerns and to address them. Up to now, however, many of the concerns stem from a considerable amount of misinformation disseminated in some of the local press and online about the Urban Dove Charter School and the circumstances that have caused East Midwood Jewish Center to accept them as a tenant. I am hoping that tonight's meeting will go a long way to clearing up many of those misconceptions, and in doing so, will set people's minds at ease. As you will hear from Mr. Michael Schwartz, EMJC went through a very rigorous process to find a suitable tenant. Needless to say, there were many factors in play around the decision. But from the start, we felt that Urban Dove's mission was in keeping with the values that our shul, our synagogue, espouses.
Small to sustain the school. In 2017, it began paying rent late, and then missing rent payments entirely. By the spring of 2018, it was clear the school would struggle to make it through the end of the academic year. A sort of white knight emerged to save the school at that time in the form of the Orthodox leadership of a Lubavitcher school in Crown Heights called Benos Menachem School for Girls. Officials from that school raised money to pay the back rent and put in place a plan to try to revive the day school again, albeit as an Orthodox institution. By July 2018, we had signed a lease assignment to them to allow them to run the East Midwood Hebrew Day School, which was now legally renamed the Midwood Day School. They took over the remaining year on the lease with the understanding that if they paid their rent on time and we could agree on the new lease terms, the lease would be renewed. At the same time, we did believe that it would be prudent to take steps to see what other options there were in case the day school didn't succeed. Those steps ramped up in November of 2018, so that's about a year ago, when the day school, the Midwood Day School, didn't pay the rent. We cast our net widely at that time. We reached out to the Shalamuth School again. We reached out to the New York City Department of Education. We spoke to Hannah Senish Community Day School, a school that many of our members send their children to. We reached out to the Luria Academy. We spoke to and or met with representatives of Benos Yaakov, a high school for girls, children who are struggling academically in conventional New York City public schools. I learned recently that if you fail your first year of high school, Board of Education really doesn't have a facility to take you in. Your only option is to retake that year in your existing school. Urban Dove was created to try to help these children who did not make the grade in their first year of high school. Urban Dove is moving from its existing space in Bedford-Stuyvesant because their lease there has ended. We spoke to them as we spoke to many other parties. In the end, Urban Dove's offer, which included substantial renovations to our ancient school building, their offer was the best. They were aligned with our values. They were transparent about their finances, allowing us to be confident that they would be able to pay the rent.
and we've been working with young people throughout New York City for over 20 years. I started my career as a New York City public school teacher and basketball coach, and founded Urban Dove because I believed in the power of sports as a way to help young people who were struggling get back on track and have successful lives and become healthy, independent adults. A few things about Urban Dove. Our charter school, Urban Dove Team Charter School, opened in 2012. We are located in a private space in Bed-Stuy. As Michael mentioned, our lease is up. We also share.
Discuss a lot of the things that we are in the midst of, and I wanted to add my voice to the site. Like Jay mentioned, thank you. I'm a parent of a graduate of the Urban Dove Team Charter School. And my son Isaiah has had challenges in school from the time he was in 4th grade. We switched the school that he had been in several times, actually virtually every year from 4th grade through and including 9th grade, where he had attended another high school in downtown Brooklyn. And we still kept receiving the same non-answers from school officials. We went to every PTA meeting, we tried everything we could, interventions, schedules, lesson plans, a variety of things to hold him accountable because he was a very intelligent young student, but nonetheless had challenges in school. Until he arrived at Urban Dove. When he reached Urban Dove Team Charter School, he had a very different attitude from the very beginning of his attendance there. He was very excited to wake up every morning to get to school early. This was a religious thing for him. This had been a struggle, like I mentioned, from 4th grade through 9th. Many of you might have children or have had children that have gone through similar struggles, but hopefully each and every one of you found a school like Urban Dove was for Isaiah. He immediately took to the team atmosphere. As you know, we have a sports-based youth development program at the school. Isaiah joined the basketball team, was very excited, not only to work with his coaches every day, but also with his teachers. In so doing, he got more excited about school. He was actually doing his homework on his own.
Accommodate people yelling out. I'm sorry. Please, if you have a question, wait online and ask the question. Next.
Hi, my name is Shimon Epstein. I have a question regarding the opening statement that was made by Rabbi Levine. Rabbi Levine characterized the actions of EMJC with regard to the lease to Urban Dove as in line with its the religious ideals of conservative Judaism. And in his words, Rabbi Levine's words, he said, this is part of our sacred mission. Seemingly, the sacred mission was to reach out to a school like Urban Dove and invite them into our community. But from President Schwartz's address, and in continuing comments from President Schwartz seemed very apologetic about the situation and expressed openly that it was done out of desperation, out of a sense of survival. So my question is the sacred mission a religious ideal, or is the sacred mission a self-survival? And if it is self-survival, then why is it at the expense of the entire community? And the question for Jay said that there's a ratio 300% greater than that of conventional schools of adult to student, of staff to student, to ensure the safety of the school environment. So my question to you, Jay, is what ratio do you suggest for us to apply?
That was 3 questions. I will let the rabbi answer the first one.
Please stand, Rabbi.
I don't believe that those two things are necessarily in conflict.
I think you slightly misrepresented what I said. I was not speaking on behalf of conservative Judaism. I was speaking on behalf of the synagogue and our mission here. And given the tremendous amount of outreach that we do to the community, to all members of all faiths through this community, using this as an actual community center, we felt that it was in keeping with the mission of the synagogue. On top of that, yes, there were no substantial offers on the table, and the truth of the matter is, our obligation is to the synagogue. There have been all sorts of questions about the charter of the synagogue. For over 20 years, the synagogue and the school have been separate entities. So as far as that goes, the charter is moot in a way. What our responsibility is to our membership. We need to survive as a synagogue because we serve a considerable portion of their community. Please let me finish. And we have done everything we could. The truth of the matter is, 5 years ago, when, as our President Michael Schwartz recounted earlier, when we were discussing bringing Shalom School in, many of the members of the board and of the synagogue, and including myself, by the way, were extremely angry that we did not rent a Shalom because there was a better deal on the table. And as the president said, out of reasons of sentimentality, because so many of the board members had either taught at the school or sent their children to the school or been at the school themselves as children, there was a slight imbalance on the board. The vote was very close, and they decided to keep the day school rather than go with Shalom. We lost at least one very valuable member over this. I myself, as I said a moment ago, was extremely angry because the synagogue was in dire need of funds. We cannot serve our mission to our own membership if we don't have money.
That's right.
We cannot pay Torah. And the Torah needs to happen here. It needs to happen here in our building.
You want to support us?
No.
You want to pay for us? You want to pay for us?
Next question.
I'm sorry I lost my voice. My name is Leah Zilberman, and it happened to be I was a teacher last year here. My question is, you said in the terms of survival, that's why you made a decision, right? Now, Rebbe, tell me how I should survive. Talking to the principal on Friday that I'm going to be a full-time worker in the school next year, and on Monday to get an email directing to the parents, not to the teachers. Unfortunately, you can't answer that email. There is no address. So how should I survive as a single mother of 4 living across the street? And another question, what did you do to the books? I'm sorry, it's a very childish question, but it bothers me a lot. What did you do to the books from the school? There were the library books, the class books, they left here. Thank you.
I'm not entirely sure I understood the first part of your question. Were you saying that you were a teacher?
I was a 4th grade English teacher working in East Midwood, former East Midwood MJA, and I'm supposed to be a full-time worker because I'm teaching Hebrew in another school. Living here, it's my survival. What should I do right now without a job?
We don't run the school. The synagogue had nothing to do with the running of the
The
school.
rabbi came to you, to manager, I don't know who was it. He asked you, how much do you want? The answer was, I don't want your money. I don't want you. That was the answer. And most parents they were devastated. They didn't know what to do. They have 3, 4, 5 children in the same school for years. They used to be in this school, the kids going to this, they used to go to this school. And the kids were upset. And the teachers didn't get paid for the last months, till today. There is nothing to do. How should I survive?
I'm sorry, obviously, about that, but I would say that the Orthodox Day School left us holding the bag to the tune of $125,000. Next question.
So what with the books? You didn't answer. What
As
with
far
the
as I
books?
know, the books
They are
are...
in the garbage, and I built up the library last year. Don't tell me, I saw it. I was sneaking in every single day, saving the books with the teachers, taking them to use them, because I knew they're gonna throw it in the garbage, and I saw him throw it in the garbage. This is how you like it.
The executive director can better speak to what happened to the books, but what I know is many of the books were taken by a man dealing with Seamus, so many of the holy books were taken away. Many of the school textbooks are not, of no value to anybody, and those ended up in the garbage. Many of the library books have been donated to various schools and other institutions that were in need of them.
The library was almost new. We had a new book.
Next question, please.
Not an old one.
Next question, please.
Clear that it is.
Your name, sir?
It's been very clear that the decision has been made based upon economic stress that the synagogue has been under. The community is obviously outraged because of the decision. Maybe give the community an insight as to how much this is. Maybe we can help, and because if this is really our decision. This is however much you guys are claiming. You guys are claiming to be trying to have peace and trying to be inclusive to everybody's opinion and everybody's views, but
Except ours.
Everybody except for your neighbor. And that, I think, according to everybody, is really inconsiderate. Thank you.
We certainly want to be considerate. Prior to this meeting tonight, we spent an hour and a half with your elected officials who think they may have some suggestions for us, which we will consider.
How much money?
Next question, please.
You didn't answer my question. I asked you a question. How much money?
Next question.
$1 million.
What about the number?
The biggest number. Biggest number.
Non-Jewish? Only non-Jewish.
I mean, we're really taking care of this. This is your only issue.
The Urban Dove School, the Urban Dove School is investing $4 million into the renovation of the existing school building, on top of a rental that they're paying us per annum.
Save money.
My name is Michelle Senior. I live directly around the corner.
Will you let the speaker answer the question, please?
My name is Michelle Senior. I live directly around the corner. I have for many, many years. My husband is a graduate of your elementary school. My main concern is security of my family, of my block, and of my children who are at Flatbush High School. And your students are walking. You said there's no pizza store on Ocean Avenue, but there's like 8 of them on Avenue J where the train is. There's a bunch of them on Avenue M where the train is. What security do we know you have? Yes, your building is very secure. You have a lot of staff. I get it. I'm sure you have security. But the minute your children walk out of the building, what security do I have that I can leave my door open?
Let me ask you a question back. How is that any different than the children leaving Murrow or the children leaving Midwood?
You live in Park Slope, but you're telling us how to live here in Cleveland.
And Murrow doesn't come over here. They're by the train. That's where their school is.
They don't fail out.
They're not.
They have police. They have police. They have police officers.
There is police all on Avenue M, and when Murrow gets out of school, I drive by there. There's a lot of police. There's police at 7 on East 22nd. On East 22nd Street, will there be security? What if your kids are?
The kids come from all
What
over.
if the kids are teaching school? No kids teach school. What if they come to my block to hang out? Because they're not going to be found. Your security does not leave this building. Excuse me. That's rude. I'm sorry. That's really rude.
You had your question.
But you didn't answer. My question is more than that. My question is to Jay. If you have nothing to do with the school except the shul, my question is to Jay. What are you going to do to ensure my security? Our children can play outside where they do now, and that they are not going to be afraid to be outside at 4:15 when they're getting, by the way, our kids get out of school at 4:15. We don't get out of here. She's a problem to get on the train. Okay, fine.
So, I don't think we're putting metal detectors on the corner of 22nd. That's not what you're asking, right?
No, I'm asking what security do I have?
So, I guess my first part of my answer would be I'm a little bit unclear why your son would be afraid.
I'm not going to lie, we are slightly sheltered. It's a little unnerving for a kid, it's more unnerving when a Jewish kid who's this tall comes into the train when there's 10 kids who are maybe the same age but are much taller. They come from all over. It is a little intimidating, and it's not a racist issue. I have no problem with that, but it is they are intimidated, and they are a little sheltered, and it's a little unnerving. And I want to know, I live on the block, and for all my neighbors who have 8-year-olds who play in the yard after school during, what security are they going to have?
I think the question is clear.
Okay.
Stop talking to get an answer.
The answer is, the best answer that I can give you two answers to that question. From our perspective, what we plan on doing, as I said, our staff is out on the street. We go a block or so in every direction to make sure our kids are on their way. We do not, you're right, we do not walk 4, 5, 6 blocks. So if there's a security question for the neighborhood in terms of safety, the 70th precinct needs to be involved. That's really a question for them. And that's the only answer that I can give.
Ladies and gentlemen, we understand your anxiety about this. We hear your anxiety about this. Obviously, we don't share it. They don't share it either. Can we have the next question, please? Can you please have the next question?
First of all, I just want to say that Eddie Baranoff, my wife spoke earlier. We spoke to Wayne, tried to get in touch with you also around June and July. And basically Wayne said, if any offer came to us that was close, forget about the renovation of the school, close monetarily, of course we're going to give it to a Jewish institution, which was totally not true.
I did not say that.
Yes, you did. And not only that, wait,
What's your question?
so my question is, first of all, if that's Wayne, Wayne said, I'm very concerned about my job. That's what he was concerned about, okay?
What's your question?
Who lives in St. Rome? So my question is, we were able to bring people that were willing to take the school. You guys had no interest in him. It is true. And nobody in this neighborhood knew about it. Nobody knew about it until Wayne actually said you have 72 hours to put it together.
72
We'll take the next question.
It's shameful that this is a Jewish institution.
I live in the neighborhood, and I respect urban dogs. They're trying to get it's natural that they're trying to. It's natural that they're trying. My question is for the board. Why is it that when they realize that Orthodox Jews were trying to buy membership into the synagogue, that they locked us out? Except for the Orthodox community.
The answer to the question?
There's no answer.
Online, you locked it out.
You did not lock anyone out.
Now, you have had enough money to pay for the rabbi and all expenses with us thousands of people here buying membership into this thing. If you would have told us this in advance that this was going to go out, everybody would buy membership, your rabbi's salary would be paid, everything would be paid.
Okay, next question.
We're going until 9 o'clock.
Excuse me? I did not get an answer to my question.
What's the next question? Give your name.
Hello, my name is Zach Bernstein. I'm a board member at Midwood Jewish Center. My children come around here. My daughter Leela is 7 years old. My son Noah is 5 years old. We have many of our fellow parents in the audience tonight. I've spent a lot of time with Jay Nanda and just wanted to express that they have been a very above board organization, have been a pleasure to deal with, very honest all the way. And myself,
Bad boy. Now let him get away with that.
Questions only.
I will ask my question.
Yes, your question.
What question you have? Okay. On behalf of all the parents in the room, in the event there are any incidents that come up along the way once the school is operational, can you tell us how those will be dealt with?
So, a couple things.
We heard his speech already.
We heard the question. The people that will answer the questions are Mr. Nanda. Excuse me, sir. The people that will answer the questions are the people that spoke. They are the best equipped people to answer the questions. How long can the answers be?
I'll keep it
The
short.
answer will be limited.
I'll keep it short. The answer to the question is,
What's the question?
the question was, if and when issues arise, how will they be dealt with? That's the question. So I would say, someone said call 911.
Yeah, they ran away. What happened on 17th Street? They ran away. Now what?
We have in the lease stipulated that there will be meetings between East Midwood Jewish Center and the school on a regular basis. We will continually meet with the community to ensure that things are being dealt with properly. We have an open line of communication with them. We've met with the 70th precinct and are in communication with them. So the answer to the question is intentionally making sure that lines of communication stay open so that we can understand what the issues are and how best to deal with them.
Next is Freddie Baranoff. First of all, I want to say your school sounds amazing.
Question, please.
Having said that, I was on the board at East Midwood Hebrew Day School for 10 years.
Question.
The question is, why did East Midwood Jewish Center not commit itself to having a Jewish school, even though we've been here. For 70, East Midwood was a school for our community, for our Jewish children. And I want to know why, when it came down to dollars, how to go with the school that does sound wonderful, but is not committed to what we want. Is working, as you know, Michael, on getting other tenants for you, but you did not give us time to do that.
Let's answer the question.
Thank
you.
We met with Benos Yaakov for high school for girls.
That's the answer to the question. Why the money before the community? Why the money before the community?
No. We met with as many organizations as we could. Not one made a formal bid. There was one at the end that did. They refused to put any money down to secure their bid. And while it's all well and good for you to sit there and say we should ignore our financial reality, who's going to pay for our rabbi? Who's going to pay for our facilities? Are you?
I'll pay. You never open up your doors.
I'll pay.
No one will pay.
One at a time. Let me interrupt because I spoke with Wayne at length. I've spoken with a number of your board members.
You asked the question. Either we're going to go,
You're out of order.
or we'll
You're out of order. He didn't answer. You're out of order. You're out of order.
One question.
It's the same thing.
One question.
You didn't answer
One
that
question.
question.
One
You didn't
question.
answer it.
One question.
You didn't answer it.
One
You
question.
didn't answer it.
Don't get excited. Don't get excited.
Yeah, maybe if it's
Don't get excited. Don't get excited.
secretary, so I can bring the room to order, please. If you can please bring the room to order.
My name is Joey Sasson.
Louder.
My name is Joey Sasson.
Just a moment, please, sir. We need to bring the room to order before we take any more questions. Can I please ask that if the proceedings are to go forward, it must be done in an atmosphere of respect. There's a lot of very angry people, obviously, in the room. There's a lot of heat, a lot of temper. We're not going to get anywhere. We're not going to answer any questions. We're not going to be able to answer any questions. People aren't going to be able to ask some questions if we can't take on these proceedings in a matter of respect, of mutual respect, and listening to one another. So let's not hurl accusations about people lying. Please, let's not risk heart attacks for anybody, please. I've heard that in the last 90 seconds. Let's just, excuse me, move forward. In a matter of respect. Your question, Senator.
So I believe you said the criteria to enter the school is just they have to fail 9th grade?
Yes.
And they don't have to be at risk?
What do you mean by at risk?
You said they don't have to be at risk. I didn't understand what you were saying. That's where I want clarification.
Okay, I'm happy to clarify. So in order to enroll in our school, you have to have done two things and two things only. Be 16 or younger and have 11 credits or less in 9th grade. There is no... There's no...
My question is really, the job has a history. If a student has a history of violence, will they be rejected from coming to the school?
We don't ask for any histories of violence. That information... It's illegal for us to ask a student if they have a history of violence. And if they are 16 or younger and have less than 11 credits, they can come to our school.
This is a very meaningful meeting. But why wasn't this very meaningful meeting held before a decision was made? After a decision was made behind the scenes without the input from the community, and now you can say anything you want, you tried, you met. Why wasn't it done before, and now it's a salesmanship? Now it's salesmanship. Why was the community not involved? And why is it, you're telling me about the tenant, the new tenant, why is the synagogue, which everybody admires and does a wonderful job in many ways, why doesn't the synagogue follow its charter, which is to enforce and improve and further Jewish education and Jewish tradition? The community was not involved in the question. You want it to be a question? Why? And if it's this is a legal issue also, because if you have a 5-year or more lease, you need Attorney General or court approval. I don't know if you're aware of that. Has there been a court or Attorney General approval for this lease? That's the question. What? I can't hear you. You got to use the microphone.
Are you finished?
I asked my question. Okay, I'm back.
Okay, so I heard two questions.
There were more.
I heard two questions, so I'll answer two questions. First question was, why didn't we have this meeting before we entered into a lease? In light of this showing, I would say to you that that's a very fair question. What you must remember, however, is that the synagogue is essentially a private institution. The synagogue is obligated to raise the revenues that it needs to raise to pay its operating expenses. And generally, we do not come to the community for those funds.
That's right.
And frankly, I wonder, have you come to the community for those funds? Would we have gotten them? It's easy now for you to sit there and say yes. It's easy now for you to sit there and say yes. The second question, I think, was what Attorney General. We have proceeded in accordance with the provisions of the law affecting our lease.
By raise of hands, I'd like to know how many members of this synagogue live within a 5-block radius. I see about 7 hands, okay? Now, I know that outside there are people, there are people outside who are not let in and will not be able to raise their concern because of a letter that went out by the rabbi, which I got, that states that all members should please come to show your support. Now, if this is information to be given out to the neighborhood, why must this room be filled with members who already know what's going on and are only interested in the money?
It's not filled with members.
I see people outside who don't have room and you want it.
What, have a fire hazard here, have a heart attack, and they won't be able to...
Yes. My question is, I've heard that the Aviator had turned down Urban Dove as a tenant. I want to know why. There's no neighborhood over there. Why couldn't they open up?
Thank you for your question. The Aviator did not turn Urban Dove down as a tenant. That's just untrue. And the CEO of Aviator, Kevin McCabe, who was, I think, called recently by somebody, explained to them that wasn't true. We had never planned on locating him at the Aviator. The Aviator is a sports facility. It could not house a school. And it can't house the school part. It can only play the sports part. So the answer to your question is, we were never planning on locating our school at the Aviator. We were planning on locating our school at the National Park Service, the old building out at Floyd Bennett Field. And then we were going to use the Aviator for our sports program. When we weren't able to, the national parks said we could not use those buildings for school. Federal building, and they didn't want to charge for it. And where's most of your children, where are most of your kids coming from? What neighborhood? What neighborhood the school made up?
Okay, that's your second question. After that question is answered, we'll move on to the next question. What's the question? What area are the kids coming from? Where do they live? We live here. Where do they come from?
Our kids come from all over Brooklyn. All over Brooklyn.
I just want to say the press is downstairs, but they're not allowed to be up. So I think that if you want an open meeting, you should let them in.
Let the press in.
Yeah, let the press in, please.
Let the press in.
Hello. They're downstairs. They're downstairs. So why don't they come up? No, we are the press.
Next question. Please state your name and ask your question.
My name is Ellen Levitt. I've been part of East Midwood since I was 7. I'm 55 now. I'm also a veteran teacher, high school teacher, and I'm also a Murrow alum and a Murrow parent. And I spoke with you the other day on the phone, and when I asked you if you reached out to Alan Barge, who's the principal of Murrow High School, you said no, not yet. Why haven't you reached out to Mr. Barge? This frightens me.
We haven't reached out to Mr. Barge at Murrow High School because we have 9 months before we move into this building. We're prioritizing the list of meetings that we're taking, and that meeting isn't high enough priority list. But we will get there. We will get to them.
That's not, you have to reach out. It's a well-regarded school, but there could be problems. I want you to have gone there already.
Next question, please.
My name is Victor Shine. The question is for Mr. Nanda. Reading from a site on the internet, some of your employees and past employees have less than a favorable view of your school. I'm just quoting, attendance is a major issue. And skipping a little more, teachers have to carry walkies in case you have to call a code. So I'd like to know more about what calling a code entails. And they basically say that there's very poor and weak leadership at the top. You know, granted, these are probably disgruntled people, but even so, it was said by more than one person on this site. I'd like to know how you address truancy and also what calling a code means.
Okay. Attendance is an issue. Our kids are disengaged. They don't come to school nearly as often as we'd like them to. So we have an attendance task force, we have an attendance coordinator, we call home, we do everything that we can to get them to school, but it is transfer school students, one of the biggest challenges is attendance. Calling a code can be a variety of things. A student is out of the classroom and needs to go back into the classroom. A student needs to see a coach about something. A student's having some sort of problem with another student. It really can vary. All kinds of problems. For instance, two kids get into an argument in a classroom and a coach needs to come and separate it. They call a code and the coach comes in and separates.
Mr. President, and all these members here, these individuals, and you have our names now because we are outside here asked of our names, our addresses, our phone numbers, and each and every person here who wants to become a member asks to become a member today. Would you accept it?
Yes or no? Yes or no? No.
Why not? I have brought a form, I have brought a form, and if they signed a membership form and bring you a check, and give you a check right now, would you become a member, would you allow an Orthodox person to become a member today, now?
Will you pray in the sanctuary?
How many people want to become members? Please raise their hands. How many people are willing to pay for membership today? Right now! All right, let's do it now. Please right now.
Okay, let's go.
All right, next question. Next question.
That is the answer. Become members right now.
They can become members. If I follow their bylaws, they can become members.
That is. How are you, Rhoda?
Ladies and gentlemen,
I think we were watching some contribution.
ladies and gentlemen, we can end this right now.
And you can make it in order so we can.
Would you like to stand this right now? Would you like to stand it right now?
No!
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure seeing you.
Why you said no money? Daddy said no money?
Let's continue with the
Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Not everybody in this world, not everybody in Brooklyn is like color.
Excuse me, I'd like to say something as I'm a non-Jew. And I live on the block, and as these officers here will tell you, I have concerns all the time about the neighborhood. So what you just said, you should have said the race card should have never been brought up. That's wrong.
All right, that's enough.
I've been trying to ask a question for over there.
No more, it's over, it's finished.
No, I stood there and everyone yelled and screamed
There's
at me.
too many people there, let's go.
All right, this was, guys, I know you do it. I talk to you all the time and your partner all the time. I'm not mad at you.
that they sent away, you can all meet downstairs. So you carrying Maynard in the sanctuary right now? Mr. President.
All right, it's over, everybody.
President, carrying Maynard in the sanctuary.
All I know is
The sanctuary is supposed to bring us away.
my grandmother's an Irish Catholic who's worried about the neighborhood. If you let me ask the question, you would hear this. Because you brought up the race. There was no need to bring up race cards. No one was saying that. I have it right here. Different races. I have Well, I know that they're stretched thin as it is with the Murrow kids. This gentleman here mentioned that there's no place for these kids to hang out. There's no pizza places on Avenue M or Avenue 2. There's plenty of places on Avenue M. Anyone who lives in the neighborhood is. The gyro place that used to be pizza, there's 7-Elevens, there's the park that these poor officers take care of every day because they hear complaints from all of us. And all I want to know is how could he say that? How's he going to make sure that they're going to be able to get safe? And also the bus stop here on the corner. You know, we have the bus stop at 49 both directions, even over here. She's an elderly woman. I'm just more worried about her concern because if these kids, and I've had trouble with the Murrow kids. I'm 47. I've had trouble with the Murrow. They have trouble with the Murrow kids. These poor cops are stretched thin as it is. There's not going to be enough cops on the force to take care of this neighborhood. But that's all I wanted to ask him. Is did he really look into the neighborhood? You can't just say what you're saying.
I think that there's a big thing that I think is just not going to matter. Two things, not going to matter. I remember when everybody screamed about tomorrow, don't establish tomorrow, they're going to walk through the neighborhood.
I think that the hundreds of kids from the OCD class that are dying from opiates, they're going to be part of the charter school. The school should welcome it. All the kids off the derrick will go to this charter school.
I come to every meeting, police meeting that's here. The cops will tell you. And I voice my concerns all the time, and I've never once brought up race like you have. And that's not fair that you did. And when I said something to you, you said okay. You should apologize for that. And I'm not that wrong person,
Fortunately, the words that I shared with the crowd are all of the sentiments that I had to share about being a parent. And just to reiterate, it was very, very important that our son found Urban Dove Team Charter School, and I feel great.
Our students have already gone to 9th grade somewhere else, so really it's a 10 through 12 high school. I mean, we call them year 1, year 2, and year 3, but yes, essentially it's a 10 through 12 high school.
How would you address some of the concerns that a lot of people had tonight?
I mean, I think we did address them. I think we talked about the way that we handle safety and security in our school. We talked about the number of adults that we have. We talked about who our kids really are. I think there's a misunderstanding that our school is somehow for delinquents or troubled youth or incarcerated. That's not what our school is for. Our school is simply for kids who are struggling academically. And they're the ones who need the help, and we bring them in and give them that academic help. So I think that the safety concerns in the neighborhood, I mean, we're in touch with the 70th precinct, and I think we addressed a lot of the concerns that people have. And hopefully once we move in, and once we are here and our kids show that they're great kids, I think hopefully a lot of those fears will go away. Our school is, when we say at-risk youth, and it's a phrase that gets thrown around a lot, at-risk youth doesn't mean kids who are troubled. It means kids who are struggling academically. So that's the first thing to take away. That doesn't mean that they're troubled kids, it doesn't mean that they're violent kids, it's just kids who have struggled academically. And the other thing to take away is that we've been doing this for a long time. We do what we do very well. We've been in Bed-Stuy for 8 years, never had any problem with the police department, we never had any problem with anyone in the community or neighbors or kids getting beat up at the train or anything like that. We're a very safe school, we do what we do really, really well, and we have wonderful, wonderful kids who just need a different academic environment to be successful.